Since 2015, Jared Stillman has rocked Nashville sports.
That team freaking stinks.
And now he's back. The takes are hotter than ever.
I mean, let's be honest, he just can't coach.
Welcome to Stillman and Company.
Stillman and Company of the 440 Sports Network, presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Today on the program, we discuss the reports of what went down at joint practice between the Titans and the Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. We hear what the reporters are saying because I was not out there. I was hosting the Stephen A. Smith show. And by the way, I did get a little jolt of energy. I was excited to be hosting the Stephen A. Smith show today, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But we'll go over what went down today at the joint practice, what they're saying happened. And then, of course, we'll get you set for Thursday night, or excuse me, for Sunday night, Titans-Seahawks. Plus, who watched Fernando Mendoza and C.J. Stroud last night? I did. So we'll get to that as well. First, I just want to say off the top, I was getting tweets while I was on air on Mad Dog doing the Stephen A. Smith show. I was getting tweets from people that are like, Cam threw a touchdown and Jared Stillman is silent. I went and looked at his Twitter, and of course it's radio silence. I mean, he can't talk about Cam when he does well. I'm like, what? If you go to my Twitter, you see it says, in for Stephen A. Smith from 12 to 2. I'm kind of busy. You people. Sometimes I think you people just think that I sit there on Twitter and I'm just there to talk shit for whenever you want to be rage baited, which I don't try to do. I just tell you my opinions, and you people are so soft sometimes you just get too upset about it. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, our presenting sponsor. I absolutely love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. Hiller has the satisfaction of happy you will be, or the service is free. If a customer is not happy with the work that is performed, Hiller will make it right. I know this because I've been using Hiller at my home since I bought my first home in 2018. I had Hiller at my home last week. It's so easy. You just go online, happyhiller.com, and you can just plug in the window for when you know you'll be home, when you know you'll be able to put your attention to what needs to get changed, and then Hiller will get it fixed, and they'll get it fixed correctly. Again, I know this because I use Hiller at my own home. I absolutely love them. True transparency pricing, that's the name of the game. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. So during commercial breaks, while I was on SiriusXM, and let me just state for the record, what I'm about to do, I absolutely freaking hate. I hate talking about practices that I didn't go to. And I hate it because when it comes to talking about joint practices, and there's context of what were they trying to accomplish? What were they not trying to accomplish? What was the goal? I mean, there was one time when I was covering joint practices against Tampa Bay where Logan Woodside had about 5 throws and threw 3 interceptions. And right after the practice was over, I said to Mike Vrabel, I go, what was that? What happened there? And Vrabel said, it was the last play of the game drill. So it's 4th down, or there's no time left, and the ball has to go in the end zone, and you have to throw it, and it has to be completed for a touchdown. So at that point, the difference between an interception and an incompletion is the same. I said, cool. That makes sense to me. I just hate sitting here and telling you opinions about stuff I didn't see. And look, I bang on the local media a lot. I think that they do a good enough job, but I certainly, when I'm trying to evaluate what's going on here or what's happening with the team, I like to see those things with my own 2 eyes. So here's what we're seeing. I talked to Easton Freeze yesterday, and I said to Easton, I go, Easton, I'm not going to be able to go out there. I need you to give me a quarterback rating for how Cam Ward performs today in the scrimmage. Easton said, if he was giving Cam a quarterback rating, and remember that Cam's quarterback rating was in the 30s on Thursday night, he said he would give Cam a 94.3. 94.3 is good. It's not great. It's not outstanding. Outstanding is in the 130s. Really good is in the 100s, 110. Good is in the high 80s to low 100s is good. So that was good. And if it's true that Cam Ward went out there and looked the part of a starting quarterback with a quarterback rating of 94.3, as Easton said, that's a good thing. Like, I don't want people to think that, oh man, Jared Stillman, he's going to say everything is bad no matter what. That's not true. If Cam went out there and had a 94.3 quarterback rating, if Cam goes into the game on Sunday and has a 94.3 quarterback rating, which is what Easton Freeze gave him on the vibes, if that's the case, I would probably say that's a good day. Now, I'd have to see it, and I will see it because it's a nationally televised game, but that's good. It's okay to play better. I support the Titans playing better. And I was looking at PK's tweets to see what he was saying was going down at practice. And there was one that absolutely stood out to me. Titans first team offense scores a touchdown on 2-minute drill. Key play, pass interference versus Josh Jobe on Alec Iomanner in the end zone on a deep ball. That right there. And you want to know why that's important to me? Why that one thing right there, Kaharski tweeted out. Titans first team offense scores a touchdown in the 2-minute drill. Because 2 years ago, 2024, I went out to joint practices. They were practicing against the Seahawks. And the Titans could not get a first down on offense. Levis, and Traylon Burks, and DeAndre Hopkins, and Calvin Ridley, and Tony Pollard, and J.C. Latham was at left tackle, and PT was at right tackle, and that group went out there against the Seahawks. They couldn't get a first down. And one of the moments, but maybe not the moment where I first thought Callahan was in over his head, the first would be when Jeffrey Simmons tested him and he didn't kick him out of practice the first day of pads. But one of the first moments where I realized Brian Callahan was in over his head was when they had a 2-minute drill against the Seahawks. And on the first throw, Will Levis gets picked off by Devin Witherspoon. And, everybody was out there having a good time and everybody was laughing and they took the ball, the Seahawk players did, and they ran it over to the Titans sideline where Jamal Adams, who longtime Seahawk, had just signed with the Titans. He was on the sidelines. They gave the ball to Jamal Adams. Everybody laughed. Everybody had a good time. Everybody was chuckling. The media was chuckling. The fans were chuckling. The Titans were chuckling. The Seahawks were chuckling, and that's fine. But what I was expecting after they ran one play in the 2-minute drill was I was expecting the head coach to blow the whistle. That's the best whistle I can do for you without actually having the whistle and saying, all right, run it again. But they didn't. Next thing I knew, Sam Howell trotted back out onto the field for the Seahawks number 2s. And I thought, okay, well, they'll let the Seahawks 2s go and then they'll send the first team offense back out. They didn't do it. In joint practices, which were 2 days then, now it's 1 day here. In joint practices against the Seattle Seahawks, about 2 weeks before the start of the season, the first team offense with a second-year quarterback got 1 rep in the 2-minute drill, which is supposed to be a game-like situation. You can't hit the quarterback, but other than that, it's football. They got 1 rep. And I asked Callahan, I said, they got 1 rep? How confident are you that they learned anything from that 1 rep? Well, we're going to have a lot of opportunities between now and then to be able to, So when PK says they had a 2-minute drill against the Seahawks number 1 defense, again, the defending Super Bowl champion number 1 defense, and Cam Ward led a touchdown drive, that to me is a big deal. And that is a good thing. And for some reason, I think there are a lot of people out there that think that I can't say Cam did well if Cam did well. And that's just not true. I had a buddy of mine who I went to college with. He's one of my best friends. He played in the big leagues, had a cup of coffee with the Marlins and the Angels, and we were in Turks and Caicos one time. And he was telling me a story. He said, you know what we used to always say in the minor leagues? We used to always say, if you don't like it, play better. So when you're in A-ball and the only food they have in the clubhouse is peanut butter and jelly, and you're like, oh, God, I think this is just awful. Well, don't like it? Play better. And then you'll get sent to AA, and they'll feed you better. Or you'll be in AAA, and there will be a guy who you think you're better than who gets called up to the big leagues, or a guy's hitting ahead of you in the lineup, or a guy's the closer and you're a reliever and you think you should be the closer. And you'll say, don't like it? Play better. So if you don't like the criticisms that I have of Cam Ward, all I would say is play better. That's it. Go out there, play better, and I'll treat it like it is. There's a lot of you out there that can't do that. There's a lot of you that look at that Seahawks quarterback who just won the Super Bowl, and you guys are like, he sucks. He sucked with the Jets 8 years ago, Jared. He sucks. No, he played better. That's what I wanted to see at a joint practices, is I wanted to see Cam Ward play better, and it sounds like Cam played better. Again, as Kaharski said, they scored a touchdown. The first team offense scored a touchdown on the 2-minute drill. That is way better than what happened 2 years ago. A joint practice that I was at, I wasn't at this one, but a joint practice that foreshadowed to me how shitty that offense was going to be. I'll never forget standing there. I can still picture it. I was standing on the sideline. There was a throw Levis had for Traylon Burks where Traylon Burks pulled up because, of course, Traylon Burks got hurt. And there was a throw he had, and then there was another, and they just couldn't move the ball. And it was so hot outside. It kind of reminded me of those games when the Titans sucked when I was a kid. Jake Locker was the quarterback. And I would go to the game, and they couldn't get a fucking first down, and it was September, so it was 99 degrees outside, and it was just miserable to be at. And in the third quarter, it's like, let's go, because it's so hot. And that's what that practice against Seattle 2 years ago felt like. And I said on my radio show, I go, look, if this had been a game, and it was on TV and everybody saw it, you people would all be saying the team sucks, the offense sucks, and Levis sucks. And of course, when I said that, I was the biggest hater. It's practice, Jared. It doesn't count. It doesn't. To me, that foreshadowed how bad that offense was going to be during the course of the year. This is a sign of growth. Instead of making excuses about why they didn't score a touchdown, we get to say first team offense, 2-minute drill, touchdown. Good job. Go get some water and hit the showers. It sounds like, and I want to keep saying sounds like, it sounds like Cam was pretty good today until he threw a pick six over the middle. And when Cam threw a touchdown in the red zone period, I got a bunch of tweets from people saying, where are you now, Jared? What do you think of it now? And I was like, easy. Red zone period throws. In the red zone period, you're going to have, 6 plays, 7 plays, 5 plays, and you're in the red zone. So you already start there. You probably should have some touchdowns. Good. That's a good sign. Then Cam throws a pick six. And I saw the tweet from Kaharski when Cam threw the pick six, and people, of course, tagged me in that. Chris Stoll, pick six of Cam Ward, late for Carnell Tate over the middle. And people were saying, oh, Jared's going to kill Cam about this. Even though Fernando Mendoza threw a pick six yesterday and he didn't kill him, Jared's going to kill Cam over this. I'm not going to crush Cam Ward for a pick six that I didn't see. Now, if you want to win games in the NFL and you're limited at the quarterback position or you're limited on offense because you don't have a great offensive line or you don't have great skill position players around you, you can't be throwing pick sixes. If you are a game manager quarterback, can't throw a pick six. Mahomes, Josh Allen, those guys, and I would prefer if I was their coach for them to not throw pick sixes, but they can throw a pick six because they can make up for it. Tom Brady threw a pick six in the Super Bowl against the Atlanta Falcons, and that was probably the greatest quarterback performance I've ever seen. So you can overcome that. It's not going to define your day unless it's at the very, very end of the game, and then it happens. So when it comes to that, I would say that I was rather encouraged by the reports, even though Cam threw a pick six. Kaharski tweeted out, Titans offense has been very good so far, just finished a quality red zone period against the Seahawks, and they ran it especially well. Running the ball is going to be very important for this team because I think their offensive line, like most offensive lines, is going to be a better run blocking offensive line than it is a pass blocking offensive line. I think it's very important because I think, again, you want to manage the games for the young quarterback, and you also want to put the young quarterback in 3rd and 4 instead of 3rd and 13. How do you do that? You run the ball. Then it sets up play action. Then it allows you to be more dynamic. That's a good sign. Then Kaharski later said that the tide had turned and the Seahawks defense had tightened up and the Titans were having a hard time trying to move the ball. That's very possible in a game where the Titans come out, they start off early, they get going early, and then the defense makes adjustments, and it's going to be tough. I mean, the games the Titans are going to have to win this year, guys, if they're going to win games, they're going to have to be the black and blue games. They're going to have to be the games where everybody is, at the end of the game, exhausted, and you ran the ball, and it came down in the end, and you had a 2-minute drill. They interfered with Alec Io Manor in the end zone. Throw the flag, put the ball at the 1-yard line. Tony Pollard runs it in. You win. That's how you're supposed to win those kind of games. So to me, I don't think this is I got nothing. I have not seen anything that would lead me to complain about the practice today that, again, I wasn't there for. And I love how people on Twitter are like, how could you not be at the practice? Guys, I was filling in for Stephen A. Smith, one of the 2 top media people in sports right now. There's Pat McAfee and there's Stephen A. Smith. If you got offered the opportunity to fill in for Stephen A. Smith, you'd fill in for Stephen A. Smith too. Now, apparently, Cam Ward wasn't the only one who threw a pick six today. Apparently, Sam Darnold, my guy, Sam Darnold, threw a pick six taken by Alontae Taylor, run into the end zone for a touchdown. Just like Cam Ward's pick six, I don't actually know what the context surrounding the interception was. I don't know. Did Taylor jump in front of JSN and make a great play? Was there a ball that got, I don't know. I'm not going to assume. I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to any of that. I will say this. It sounds like the Titans had a bounce back day when it came to the secondary against what I think should be a much better passing game. Now, I think that this Stribling for the 49ers, I think he might be pretty good. So I know that we had never heard of him, and he was cooking the Titans secondary, and if Cordell Flott's going to make all that money, he shouldn't be. I get that. I think Stribling's going to be pretty good, but he's probably not Jackson Smith and Jigba. And Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. Like, I know you guys still think he sucks because it makes you feel better to say that. Sam Darnold is a good quarterback. So if the Titans secondary that got torched by Curtis Rourke and Deshaun Stribling, if they went out there against JSN and Sam Darnold and they held their own, I'm going to tell you, that's a great sign. A great sign. Like, I think it's going to be awesome. And so I think that that's the real, again, if I'm looking for positives, it was that everything that apparently was bad in the game Thursday night was supposedly much better. And I wasn't there, so I can't tell you the context of the interception. I can't, and I don't even know how the Seahawks did in their 2-minute drill. But I do think that that's another important thing. How did your defense hold up? According to TD, Robert Saleh said Cam Ward has had a great camp. Saleh admitted there are plays Ward would like back, but more often than not, Saleh feels like Ward has done well. I'm not sure I'd say that, but again, I wasn't there today. According to TD's notes for Titans practice, he said Darnold with a nice over-the-shoulder throw to JSN for a big gain. Alontae Taylor was the biggest defender. Darnold to George Holani, a running back for a touchdown. Holani ran by Cordell Flott for the catch and score. That's not a good sign. Darnold to Smith and Jigba is fun to watch. JSN just sat in a window in zone. Let's see. Tony Pollard is running hard today. Pollard still has swift cutting ability. Alontae Taylor, pick 6 on Darnold in a move the ball period. That's good news. That's good. That is good that the guy that you paid went out there and picked off the Super Bowl winning quarterback and took it to the house a week after we saw your secondary get lit up by backups. That's a good sign. Ward to Gunnar Helm on an outbreaking route, then found Tate for a jumping catch attempt along the sideline, which drew pass interference. Play action, Ward to Bellinger on a crossover for a touchdown. Trubisky bombed to Restrepo on a seam route, over-the-shoulder drop shot. Restrepo caught it, tumbled to the ground just short of the end zone. Julius Chestnut had a touchdown, according to TD. Let's see. TD 7-on-7, Ward to Io Manor. Other than that, mostly the short passing game for the Titans on offense. Levis, an impressive throw to Restrepo on a 15-yard out. Don't care about special teams periods. Sam Darnold, touchdown to Elijah Arroyo. Alontae Taylor was the nearest defender. Trubisky with a drop shot to DK in the corner of the end zone with a toe tapping catch. By the way, one thing that I do feel about the Titans that, again, I'm not saying they shouldn't have signed Wan'Dale Robinson, though I probably would have spent the money somewhere else. When it comes to Chim DK, I felt like Chim DK last year was probably deserving of a starting spot for this year. Like, I don't like taking young guys. And Kevin Winston's an example of this. I don't like just taking young guys because you drafted them and saying, okay, he's a starter. You know, I think some people did that with Jackson Slater. They said, okay, well, they drafted him, so Slater should start at guard, even though Slater had 18 career snaps, and I'm not even sure they were all that good. I'm like, no, you don't just give a guy a job like that. The guy's got to earn the job. It'd be like giving Femi a job and saying, okay, Femi, you're starting. Not doing that. Femi's got to earn the job. So I say all of this because when it comes to DK, I thought DK had actually earned a starting job last year. And so I was a little surprised when Chim DK ended up kind of getting oversigned with the Wan'Dale Robinson signing. I'd like to see Chim DK play a little bit more with the actual starters. And I'd like to see Chim DK on the field, you know, again, with the varsity team, with the good players. Cam Ward play action slant. Ty Okuda came down off his post and picked it off. Ward never saw him. I'm guessing that, so TD says it was Ty Okuda. PK said it was Chris Stoll. I'm guessing that was the same guy. So Ward never saw him. I don't love that. Drew Lock threw an outbreaking route to Jake Bobo, caught it, popped up. Micah Robinson picked up the fumble. Bobo was down, then got carted off. Apparently, Mike McDonald, by the way, said that the Bobo thing was serious. The Titans defense held its own in low red zone. That's good. Very good. So I got to say, sounds like a positive practice for the Titans today, where, again, they weren't perfect, but they're not going to be perfect. Even when you win in the NFL, there are mistakes that are made in the game. And the best teams, by the way, are the teams that when they win, they can still watch the film and can get better. Now, the problem is we live in this pussification society where if you lose, now you only want to hear good things about yourself. And when you win, when somebody tries to correct a little thing that you do, it's like, what do you mean we won the game? It's okay to be a little critical. It's okay. It sounds like Cam had a bounce back, which again is what I was hoping for. It sounds like the secondary had a bounce back, which again, that's what I was hoping for. That's it. TDG says, BTA, according to Jeff. Oh, well, Jeff Simmons, a very reliable narrator when it comes to what happened. Like, I like the people that cover the team in the local media. I do. And I think they like me, though I'm sure there are some people that secretly hate me or that actually hate me or what. I don't give a shit. But I like the people that cover the team. I find the people on the day-to-day that cover the team are usually more team slanted than they would even like to believe about themselves. It is what it is. I'm not being rude. I'm just saying what it is. Well, when it comes to talking a big game, nobody does that better than Jeff Simmons. So Jeff Simmons gets up there and says they kicked their ass. I'll take that with a grain of salt. Now, if Kaharski were to say the same thing and the people who cover the Seahawks were to say the same thing, then we got something there. But easy there on Jeff Simmons said we did it. Easy when it comes to that. Okay, now the game on Sunday, because again, we'll all be able to watch. And I thought the game on Sunday was at 7 o'clock. Am I wrong about that? I thought Titans-Seahawks was 7 on Fox, and then I saw somebody say it was 3 o'clock. I mean, it says right here, I just put it up there. It says 7 o'clock. So Titans-Seahawks, 7 o'clock on Sunday night. I will be watching the game. You will be watching the game. And we will probably do what we did last week, which is we'll probably go live at halftime when the starters come out. Robert Saleh said today he expects the starters to play half the game. Here's what I want to see, because I doubt the Seahawks are going to play their guys. Here's what I want to see. I want to see Cam do what he reportedly did today. Now, I would like to not see a pick six. And again, I don't know the context of the pick six. When TD says that he just didn't see the defender, that's bad. Because in a game, that's 7 points going the other way. And that could absolutely derail you from winning a football game. But I'm going to go ahead and just chalk that up to, you know what? They'll figure it out. I don't know the context of it, so I'm not going to hammer Cam for that. If Cam had a good day outside of the pick six, okay. Buck says that Cam got a C+ for his performance today, objectively saying that the pick six was bad. Let's have the day he had today without an objectively bad pick six, if that's what it was. When it comes to the defense, what I want to see is I want to see the secondary. They're not going to be playing JSN on Sunday night. I'd like to see the Titans defense, starting defense against Drew Lock, go out there and get a 3 and out and get their asses off the field. That's what I would like to see. And then it's weird when it comes to talking about the preseason, because I will say, hey, this is what matters to me in the preseason game, and then this is what happens in the preseason game, and then people are like, we were 4-0 in the preseason one year, Jared, and didn't win a regular season game. Who cares about the preseason? I don't care about the wins and losses of preseason. I mean, the Texans yesterday in the first half, for the most part, dominated the Raiders. Now, we'll get to Mendoza, and we'll get to that game here in just a second. But for the most part, the Texans dominated. Now, the Raiders technically won the game. I didn't watch the second half. Once Clint Kubiak said that Fernando Mendoza wasn't going back out there, I turned the TV off and went to bed. So I stand by what I said as far as, again, the caring about the winning and the losing. I don't care about that. But the actual game, yeah, I think it matters. And I think it's a good sign and a good story if they bounce back and they play a first half, and the Titans defense, your starting defense, should dominate any team's backup offense. And I would like to see Cam Ward move the ball effectively and have command in the passing game. That's what I'd like to see. So when it comes to the game, put that out there. We'll get to your reaction. Now, I did watch Fernando Mendoza yesterday. And when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, I was very impressed last night. very impressed last night with Fernando Mendoza. And I know people are going to be pissed when I say, hey, I was pretty impressed with the Raider quarterback, even though his stat line wasn't very good. And he threw a pick six in the game. I am well aware of how people are going to react to that because people already last night were yelling at me on social media saying, what do you think of Mendoza now, Jared? He threw a pick six. Do you think he's a bust? What do you think? He sucks. You suck. They all suck. And I'm like, easy. I'm like, easy, guys. I watched Mendoza. Couple of things. Number one, I love the zip he puts on the football. And I think he's a very accurate passer. I like the fact that after the pick six, which was a bad pick six, it was a ball he should not have thrown. He was back. His feet were moving. There was blitz coming. He threw it. He didn't look because if he looked, he would have seen the defender. His guy was a little open and he threw the ball behind him and the guy just popped in there, picked it off and ran it back into the end zone for a touchdown. And you can't have that. But after that interception, Mendoza got back on the horse, and I thought Mendoza did a very good job after the interception. At one point, he had completed 6 passes in a row. He threw an outbreaking route that Cam missed last week for Carnell Tate, and he put it right in the receiver's hands, hit the guy in the hands, and he dropped it. Can't knock Mendoza for that one. I thought Mendoza was very good, and I love the fact that, once again, he got punched in the mouth, and he got right back up. Cam had that disastrous intentional grounding last week, and I don't feel like he was the same quarterback after he had the intentional grounding. And I think the Titans have done a great job of screwing Cam up so that Cam is now sped up, and Cam is worried, and Cam's like, well, I don't want to suck like I sucked last year. I think there's a little bit of that. So, when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, I know Titan fans want to look at it and say, ha, 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 Mendoza threw a pick six. Ha, 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 ha. What are you going to say now, Jared? I watched the game. I really liked what I saw from the kid. And here's the other thing that I really like. And I'm just going to be honest when it comes to Mendoza. Because a lot of people, Caroline yesterday, she said that she thinks Cam is more likely to be a bust. Then she thinks Cam's going to be the savior of the team. And boy, people were mad at Caroline yesterday when she was on the show saying that. And I was texting with Caroline last night. And Caroline said that she was like, do these people not know that Cam Ward is not a rookie? And I said, no. I said they don't. What'll happen is if Cam's stinking it up in November, then there'll be a day where they flip on him. I've seen it happen. I saw Tennessee fans flip on Butch Jones. I saw Titan fans flip on Mariota. I saw Titan fans flip on Mike Vrabel after Vrabel got fired and they hired Callahan, and fans were like, yeah, Vrabel needed to go. He was terrible. This new guy, offense, he's good. I've seen everybody flip on everybody, so it doesn't really mean anything to me. But Mendoza's a rookie. And Mendoza's going to sit the bench. Troy Aikman said it on the broadcast last night when he said, they haven't said Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter, but Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter. To which I thought, and I have said, I want young quarterbacks to sit the bench. Because I don't think you really lose anything if you sit a young quarterback on the bench. But I think you prevent the quarterback from being ruined before he goes out there and is ready to play. And I've had somebody tell me that the former coaching staff last year said, we probably should have started Cam on the bench last year. Should have started Cam on the bench last year. You guys were letting him call the fucking plays in the first game. Wasn't ready for that. So Kirk Cousins is going to be the starter. And Fernando Mendoza is going to sit the bench. And I think the Raiders are going to follow through on that because Tom Brady is calling the shots there, and Tom Brady sat the bench and values sitting the bench. Tom Brady did an interview with Cowherd a year ago, and he talked about how Patrick Mahomes told him how important Alex Smith was in his development. He talked about Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. He talked about himself sitting behind Drew Bledsoe. So I think they're going to sit Mendoza on the bench, which is what should have happened to Cam last year. But when it comes to Mendoza, I can't tell you if he's going to be the guy. I can't tell you if he's going to be a franchise quarterback, if he's going to be an MVP quarterback, if he's going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I can't tell you that because there are so many pieces that are independent of the quarterback that determines sometimes how good the quarterback is going to be. But what I can tell you is in the first 2 preseason games, including last night when the stat line was not pretty, I have seen confirmation as to why Fernando Mendoza was the number 1 pick. And I think Fernando Mendoza looked great yesterday outside of the pick 6. Now, in a real game, we can say, well, he looked great outside of the pick 6, but you lost because of the pick 6 and nobody will be happy. And that is absolutely a lesson he has to learn. And it is not a lesson I am going to assume that Fernando Mendoza is going to learn. But I like their plan for him. I think he's athletic. I think he's big. I think he's got a good arm. I think for the most part, he puts the ball. He had a throw to Jalen Naylor yesterday where he threw it in a tight window. I think he drives the ball well. I like Mendoza, and I love that he's sitting on the bench behind a guy in Kirk Cousins whom he can learn from. Now, Jordan Rodgers made a point today on First Take that I actually thought was pretty good. He said he thinks that if Mendoza is going to be sitting the bench, then Aiden O'Connell should be the backup and Mendoza should be the third stringer. And I think that's a great call because if you want to sit Mendoza and you want him to sit behind Cousins, well, if Cousins sprains an ankle, now Mendoza has to go in there and all the things that you would hope for, that goes away. If you're going to give him a redshirt year, give him a true redshirt year. Or if you're going to give him a redshirt 6 games, 8 games, give him a true redshirt 6, 8 games. If something happens to Kirk Cousins, Aiden O'Connell's a backup quarterback. He can go in there and play the role of backup quarterback, and then the next week you evaluate what you want to do. But I do think the one thing the Raiders have that the Titans don't have is the Titans have somebody in Tom Brady. The Raiders have somebody in Tom Brady who is convicted about quarterbacks sitting the bench as they are young quarterbacks. And I think that conviction that Brady has is going to outweigh the fans that want to see the new guy play. Because Brady believes in that. Because that's what happened to Brady. There was nobody here that believed in that. There was nobody here that thought that young quarterbacks that have mechanical issues that need to get hammered out should sit their ass on the bench, which I do not get. I mean, there were people that were like, he's the next McNair, Jared. He plays like McNair. And I'm like, really? Because the guy who drafted McNair went to the podium the day that they drafted McNair and said he's not going to play for 2 years. This team drafted Cam Ward and gave him Warren Moon's number. They put him out there with no competition. Brandon Allen. Come on now. And look, I know Peyton Manning didn't sit the bench. I know Joe Burrow didn't sit the bench. I know Jaden Daniels didn't sit the bench. I know Caleb Williams didn't sit the bench. I get it. But I think that young quarterbacks don't really lose anything by sitting the bench, but I do think they gain a lot by sitting the bench. So I'm just going to tell you again, I liked what I saw from Mendoza yesterday, and I like the direction the Raiders are going in. I don't know if I can make too much of this from last night's game. This probably means more to the Titans than anything about Mendoza, but CJ Stroud last night played a couple series, and I thought CJ Stroud looked good. Now, there weren't really any, big moments like CJ Stroud had his rookie year where he led a 2-minute drill against the Buccaneers, and it was like, wow, this guy, he could be something. But I did see CJ Stroud play in control. If CJ Stroud can play in command and in control the way he did last night, granted against backups or a crappy Raider defense, Max Crosby wasn't out there. If CJ Stroud can do that, the Texans can go to the Super Bowl. But the CJ Stroud that we saw at the end of last year, and I don't even know what has gotten into CJ Stroud over the last couple of years because it's nothing like the rookie CJ Stroud. The CJ Stroud that we saw was crapping the ball out of his ass. He cost them a trip to the Super Bowl last year because he was so fucking crappy. And if he's that bad and he's lost all of his confidence, well, I'm not sure he's getting that back. All right, let's hit some of your reaction here today on the program. I am for sure going to be off by 3 because Braden and Nick Suss are going to be live at 3 o'clock with a football show. Their reaction from camp, they were both there. So they'll tell you what they think. And again, Easton Freeze says when it comes to Cam, he would give him a quarterback rating of 94, which is a good quarterback rating. It's not a great one, but it's a good one. Apparently 20 of 26, 2 touchdowns, and the 1 pick 6 from Cam Ward today. Again, I saw Nick Suss put that out there, 20 of 26. Here's the tough part about touchdowns in training camp practices. A touchdown in a training camp practice, those are red zone periods. So when we put the ball at the 6-yard line, I mean, you probably should have a couple of touchdowns. Now, if it's a move the ball period where you start the ball at the 30-yard line and you first down, second down, third down, first down, second down, first down, penalty, first down, that's different. And that's a game. But I'm not going to crap on it. Again, I wanted to see Cam bounce back. And it sounds like, because I wasn't there, it sounds like Cam bounced back, which I think is very, very good news. Jonathan says, sounds like a solid day to me. No way a bust could do this against the Super Bowl champs. Jonathan, Will Levis, in his first game, granted against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Atlanta Falcons weren't all that good. Will Levis in his first game threw 4 touchdown passes and was bombing the ball down the field, including that unbelievable throw for a touchdown to NWI in the end zone. I know you guys remember it. Just because Cam had a solid day of practice today, or it sounds like Cam had a solid day of practice, a C+, according to Buck, does not mean that Cam has made it as a franchise quarterback. And what was tough for me is I didn't see Cam. And I want to know, how accurate were the passes? Because that's my big issue with Cam. If I had to tell you the fundamental reason that I don't believe in Cam Ward, that I don't think he's a franchise quarterback, that I don't think it's going to work out, it's because the biggest thing a quarterback can do is put the ball where it's supposed to go, and I don't think he can do that. And the quarterbacks who win that aren't the most accurate are guys that have secondary traits, like Cam Newton's size and speed, Lamar Jackson's athleticism. Bill Polian said that Lamar Jackson is like Barry Sanders with the football and the ability to throw it. Lamar is not Joe Burrow when it comes to accuracy. He's not John Elway or Joe Montana or Tom Brady, but he doesn't have to be. And that's why people around the league think that when Lamar's legs go, Lamar's ability as a franchise carrying quarterback will probably go. And I say this with all due respect when it comes to Cam, because everybody tells me Cam's made of the right stuff. Cam's a hard worker. When I see Cam, I see a short, not athletic version of Vince Young. Now, because Vince Young would do the wild and crazy shit, I used to call Vince Young's interceptions Dr. Phil interceptions. Because every game it felt like Vince would have one of those interceptions where he'd throw the ball, bad mechanics, and I would call it a Dr. Phil interception because I'd see the replay and I'd see the guy standing there and he just would catch it. And I'd go, what were you thinking that made you want to throw that football? And I think Cam has some of that. Vince was not very accurate, and I think Cam has that issue. But Vince was 32-19 as a starting quarterback because Vince had elite athleticism. And I don't think Cam has that. And I think the Titans are a poorly run organization. And I think that's part of the reason why Vince failed. I've said this 1,000 times, but I used to ask Floyd, hey, what happened to Vince Young? Because everybody would tell me that Bud Adams wanted them to draft Vince Young, and Floyd didn't want to draft Vince Young, and Jeff Fisher didn't want to draft Vince Young, and Jeff Fisher said that he didn't want to draft Vince Young, and everybody knew that Jeff Fisher didn't want to draft Vince Young. But I always thought Floyd had a lot of respect for Vince. At Floyd's house, there was a signed Vince Young jersey and a signed Steve McNair jersey, in a room that had basically 20 game balls, those two jerseys, Michael Jordan's autograph, the Music City Miracle ball, like the actual ball from the Miracle, and pictures of Floyd and Bud Grant and Floyd and Bud Adams and whoever, Lamar Hunt, stuff like that. And so there was a Vince Young jersey hanging at Floyd's house. And I used to always ask Floyd, I used to say, Floyd, what happened with Vince? And all he would say is, all I know is when I was here, he was Rookie of the Year and went to the Pro Bowl. Translation, Jeff Fisher and company fucked him up. And I think that's part of the reason why Vince failed. And then I think, Vince wasn't a great passer. He wasn't accurate. And by all accounts, he didn't work hard. With Cam, I think Cam's game is like Vince in the passing game, but he doesn't have Vince's athleticism and he doesn't have Vince's size. Now, he might work harder than Vince, but right now, when I look at him play, I feel like I'm looking at a smaller Vince. Let's get to more of your reaction. One person says, Jared, just found out that you're legendary in my city, 502. Shout out to Louisville, Kentucky. I love Louisville. I went to college there, going to have my bachelor party there. I didn't want to. I hate bachelor parties. And so I didn't want, when it came to bachelor partying, I didn't want to, one of my friends had us go out to Mexico City and it was fun. And, it was great. It was his kind of vibe. But I don't want to spend all day traveling and, whatever. I didn't want to. So I just said, you know what? We're going to probably take the guys to the Kentucky Derby, walk the red carpets, do all the parties. I got a lot of hookups there. So we'll probably have a pretty good time. And I love Louisville. The city of Louisville has been very good to me. And I would like to think that the city of Louisville feels like I've been very good to them. I love Louisville. So thank you. If that's your hometown, love it. John says, if you get to have a big time show of your own, like how you were on the Stephen A. Smith show, are you going to mention the Stillbillies? Absolutely. Here's the thing that's tough, right? So maybe I'm overvaluing myself as a radio host or a media personality or something. I don't know. But I truly feel like whenever I start something, whether it was when I was in Louisville, whether it was Jared and the GM, whether it was me and Caroline or me by myself, I build out a daily audience. And some of those people in that audience hate me. And some of the people in that audience love me. And the people that hate me probably watch the most or comment the most or get worked up the most or whatever. I don't feel like that would be any different if I had my own national show. I really don't. Now, I used to think when I was doing Sirius XM at the very beginning, it was, oh my God, Sirius XM. This is such a big deal. Oh my God, this is the big show. This is the big And when I realized that so-and-so in Nevada and so-and-so in Rhode Island and so-and-so in Florida and so-and-so in Chicago is no different than somebody in Laverne and Madison and Antioch and wherever, I was like, oh, it's all the same. It's just instead of the Titans, it's Dallas Cowboys. Instead of Ryan Tannehill, it's Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think I would change. I think that one thing that I told Sirius when we sat down and we were having jobs, hey, I think I've got a pretty good audience. And I think I could bring people like that out with me. One person says, Jared, people never appreciate honesty. I love you, brother. Let me say this when it comes to honesty. When people are like, you tell the truth, it's really, you tell what I believe is the truth. And I like the people that actually want to hear the truth. Adam from Portland says, I kind of agree with you, but I disagree with you as well. We could possibly have an explosive offense if our offense had a line or if Cam could stay in the pocket. Some PTSD there. Thanks, Callahan. I don't think you can have an explosive offense. I think Carnell Tate might be a pretty good player. I don't think your tackles will protect well enough for you to have an explosive offense. I don't think your quarterback is accurate enough for you to have an explosive offense. I don't think your tight ends are good enough for you to have an explosive offense. And I'm not sure your running backs are good enough to have an explosive offense. I mean, when I'm talking running backs with explosive offense, I'm talking about Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers or Derrick Henry when he was here. I was thinking about that watching the Texans last night, and I'm like, man, you know what the Texans need? And it's easy to say this now. The Texans 2 years ago should have been all in trying to get Saquon Barkley. That would have been perfect, is to have CJ handed off to Saquon. That way Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and I know those guys are always hurt, but that's good enough at receiver with a Saquon in the backfield and a great defense. If they had that. If they had a Jonathan Taylor, if they had that kind of bell cow back, even if they had a Josh Jacobs, I think that would be great for them. Instead, they got Woody Marks. And so if you want to be an explosive offense, I think you have to have the playmakers that allow you to be an explosive offense. The greatest show on Turf Rams had Marshall Faulk. You need great players for an explosive offense. And I just, outside of maybe Tate, I'm not sure that you really have anybody like that. Kelly says, people will instantly forget these compliments the very next time you dare criticize Cam or the team. I mean, I think sometimes, I think people get more joy out of being like, Jared, Fernando Mendoza threw. If that was Cam, he would have said. Cam threw a pick six today, and I am not panicking over it, though I didn't see it, and I don't know the context behind it. So if it were to happen in a game, would it go up my ass? I don't know. I don't know what the context was. I didn't see it. Throws a pick six on Sunday, and it's a ball that, hits Daniel Bellinger in the hand and pops into the air, and the DB picks it up and runs it into the end zone for a touchdown. Then I'm going to say Daniel Bellinger needs to catch the ball. He throws a pick six like he did against the Colts last year, where the guy's just standing there, throws it on the sideline, guy just takes it, runs it into the end zone for a touchdown. We don't have problems. Everybody always wants to assume how I'll feel. Sometimes it's like it makes them feel better to say that about me. And I'm like, well, TDG says, I definitely don't hate you, Jared. I've been rocking with you forever. I know, TDG. You're my guy. I remember when we first started the show and in the YouTube chat, I was like, where the fuck is TDG? Hasn't been around at all. One person says, sounds like a decent practice, nothing to be hype about. But I have to check in with Easton afterwards and say, is that true? Nothing to be hype about? Because there's nobody who likes to hype the Titans up like Easton. A to Z Sports. Man, everything's good when it comes to the Titans. One person says his rating was worse than Cam's. Is that true? Was Fernando Mendoza's quarterback rating worse than Cam Ward's last week? I mean, it might have been. I liked how Mendoza played. And I think the big difference between the two is I felt like Mendoza, when he threw the pick, he actually went back out there, completed 6 passes in a row, stayed calm, stayed composed. When Cam had his intentional grounding against the 49ers, I feel like Cam went to shit after that. And I think that would make sense considering the fact that Cam got his brains kicked in last year. And I do think those things matter. TDG says you can't say Cam played poorly because Sam Darnold threw one too, but if Sam didn't, you would be all in on Cam. Again, that's irrelevant to me because I wasn't there. One person says you got to be your own worst critic. Titans fans should be critical and have higher standards. They don't. Titans fans, I mean, it's like Mike Borgonzi. All these people are tweeting me being like, even if we go 0-17, Jared, we shouldn't get rid of Mike Borgonzi. No. If you go 0-17, you should get rid of Mike Borgonzi. Go ask Mike Borgonzi when you see him in the supermarket next and say, hey, what do you think will happen to you if you guys go 0-17 this year? And I bet you he would say, I'll probably, get fired. So, again, it bummed me out that I wasn't there to see Sam Darnold, but I was all excited about hosting the Stephen A. Smith show today, and I had a very good time doing it. That's going to do it for me, and that's going to do it for us. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do halftime. At halftime on Sunday, right here. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Now flip over to a football show. Braden and Suss breaking down practice. Get excited. That's going to do it for us. Thank you, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Like and subscribe. Stillman & Company in the 440 Sports Network.